Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Hello and welcome to the latest look back over some of the topics featured on Talking Heads over the past week. A sticker campaign to highlight dog-friendly shops and eateries, the implementation of the Disability Discrimination Act, and hunting for sport were some of the issues up for discussion. Bob Harrison sat in for Stu for part of the week, but we'll start with Monday's debate about newly qualified drivers. Here's Stu Peters.
What could be done to make newly qualified drivers safer on the roads? Proposals to improve standards amongst inexperienced drivers in the Isle of Man should be brought forward by the end of the year. The Infrastructure Minister made the announcement in Tynwald last week. Should more restrictions be introduced for newly qualified drivers to improve safety for everyone using the Manx roads, or are the current rules restrictive enough already? What do we think? Let's go to the lines because Terry has a view on this, I think. Hello, Terry.
Well, I don't think it's so much about the young drivers coming on. I think it's about the selfish middle-aged and older drivers who are driving around at the moment.
Okay.
First of all, the amount of lack of tolerance for drivers. I mean, I've noticed that when you come into turn, somebody will actually come faster towards you so they can get forward before you've made that turn. And as regards parking, I mean, I hold a disabled driver's badge at the moment, and you'll find cars up at the hospital without disabled badge holders parking in disabled spaces. Also, at ShopRite, believe it or not.
What, parking in disabled spaces?
Yeah. And I've also noticed that, when you go into these car parks, you'll find now that you get 2 cars parking in 3 car park spaces.
Well, I have to say that most of these car parks, the spaces are far too tight to actually get in and open your doors, but there's no excuse for that.
No, they park with the wheels on either side, and right in the middle of the line.
Yeah.
Right? So they can open the doors so the passenger can get out and the driver can get out. But the third car park...
Yeah, losing a third of the spaces.
Everything.
So,
there's only one thing I'd say about young drivers, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
They know that they're going to have to pay massive insurance before they start, right? So it does tend to make them... You're always going to get the lads that go crazy with a couple of mates in. But my own view is this, that when you pass a test, they should also take a test at night time. There should be 2 tests.
Yeah.
Because you sometimes you get a young fellow with an eye on, and he's looking at oncoming traffic in the dark, and he's coming over towards the white line because he's watching your lights. That's
a thought, actually, yeah. Driving in the dark, maybe, driving at higher speeds and things than you would do during the test.
You're just getting people now. I mean, you were talking about selfies in cars the other day.
Yeah.
If you use a phone in the car, you get fined a massive amount of money. Do the same. I tell you what, it's quite simple. Take the licence off. Fine them £1,000.
Yes.
They won't be doing it again after you've done about 5 or 6 in the paper.
All right. I think you're probably quite right, Terry. Thank you very much for your call. Harry's on as well.
I'd just like to commend that last caller and agree with everything he said, but I live on a road where it's by St Means High School. When they come up in their posh, these big sort of souped-up vehicles, they're all right going to school, but when they let them out of school, they treat our road like a racetrack.
Oh, right, okay.
I did go so far as I got a petition from the whole road, 60 people signed it, and I took it to the Department of Infrastructure.
Yes.
And they said, well, they have to put something down to just see what sort of speed these people are doing. And I said, well, just don't do it in the summer holidays when the kids are off school.
Yeah, sure.
And of course, what do? They put it down in the middle of the summer holidays, and then they report back saying, oh, nobody's going fast over that.
There's no problem,
I know that, and the likes of disabled bays as well, that is awful at the hospital or shop, wherever you want.
Well, we often talk about things on this programme, Harry, and it seems that we've got plenty of rules, regulations, bylaws and all the rest of it, but they're not really being enforced enough, are they? People parking in disabled bays without a disabled badge, they ought to have the cars crushed, really, shouldn't they?
And at the same time, you'll go to some of the... I know when I take my daughter to school in the mornings, you go past the school up in Governor's Hill there, and you'll have 2 traffic wardens stopping the mothers, dropping the kids off in the cars.
Right.
They should be, this G4S, whoever it is, they should be in, like you say, ShopRite and the hospital, all the disabled bays, the Tesco's. They need to be slamping heavy fines on them, and they won't do it again.
Yeah, that's the way to sort it. Thank you very much for your call. Restrictions should be applied to all R-plate holders for a minimum of 2 years after they pass the test, plus speed restrictors in situ on their car engines to maximise the top speed to 40. Speed is the common denominator in crashes involving under 25, says D. Yeah, I think that'd be difficult and expensive to do. And if you've got a car that's limited to 40, you do it everywhere, including round hairpins that you should only do at 20. So I'm not sure that that's a great idea. Hi, Stu, I think there should be a second part of the test before the R plates can be removed. That goes for all new drivers, young and old, and a clamp down on speed for all. If nothing else, bring some money in from fines. Well, you can't tar every young driver with the same brush just because a few make an error of judgment. Why punish all those who take care and are good drivers? And there are lots of them, let's be honest about that. Stu, car parking spaces are usually too small, says David. Yes, they are. You know, you go into a car park these days and it's difficult to actually get within the lines. And I've swapped my car. I haven't got a big car anymore. I've got a small car. And even in that, it's difficult to get between the lines and still be able to open your door. So they do tend to cram them in. Hi, Stu, young drivers should be limited by insurance group rising every year of clean driving. That's not a bad idea either. Sorry, can't call us on the way to work. I've spoken to a number of teenagers about how to reduce deaths. They've come up with loads of easy solutions. Who do I give it to? Send to my MHK, no reply. Phone department, nobody's interested. Anyone got any idea who's dealing with this change of policy, says Julie. Yeah, it's the Department of Infrastructure, the people who are leading this. So, yeah, you need to get in touch with Phil Gorn's department and hopefully they'll be pleased to hear from you. Let's go to the lines. We've got Wilf on. Hello, Wilf.
Just a comment on the young drivers.
Yeah.
Which not really will be too hard on them. The test is tough enough. The written test is tough enough. Well, possibly out at night driving, fair enough, a lesson for that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you pass your test, you got your R plates on, you drive for a year before they're taken off. Now, when they get their R plates on, it's okay, boys, right, load up, let's go. We're all set now.
Right, gotcha.
Now, the thing is, that R plate should be on for 2 years. No passengers carried unless there's a licensed driver with them.
Gotcha. Sitting in the front passenger seat.
I think that would save a lot of problems.
Right, okay, good point.
You've then got 2 years to learn to drive.
Yeah. And you do tend to learn an awful lot more about driving when you're on your own in a car, don't you, than when you've got an instructor there.
And if they're not allowed to carry passengers, if they're on their own,
yes.
Then if they do have a bump or whatever,
yeah,
it's only them that's in there.
Thank you, Wilf, appreciate that. Stu, you can tar every young driver with the same brush. I've done it, says Robbie the tar boy. Not helpful, Robbie.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Talking Heads with myself on Manx Radio, Bob Harrison, sitting in for Stu for the next couple of days. After the best part of a decade, the Disability Discrimination Act 2006 has finally been given the green light. Last week, Tynwald backed a motion calling for the Act, which will give disability rights to the disabled people, and these will be put into effect. The Act passed lots of legal hurdles to become law. Nearly 10 years it's been sidelined to make way for the new Equality Bill, which has wider scope. But tackling discrimination on grounds of age, race, religion and gender, as well as disability. However, that legislation has now been delayed, so the DDA, as we will call it, will take its place in the short term. There's been a call for the DDA to be brought in immediately, but the Health Minister says more work is needed before the laws can be brought in. Health officials are now working on detailed guidance notes for approval by Tynwald in December this year, with a view to implication of the Act in 2016. Is the DDA long overdue at this stage, or will complying with the legislation be much of a burden? Are you a part of a business? Have you looked about over your properties how you get access for the disabled? They were talking about reasonableness, lifts, ramps, etc., etc. Are you going to be affected when this bill does come in, the DDA? Muriel's come in. An equality bill is about how we see as a community treat people as regards age, gender, religious beliefs and disability. It is about human rights, not about a few ramps for people in wheelchairs. When Peter Tatchell was on the island recently, Mr Bell indicated he wanted to see the equality bill brought in. What has happened to change that in the last fortnight? Muriel, I don't know. Robin called. I think that was absolutely disgusting remark to make about people in wheelchairs by your previous contributor. OK, put that person in the position of someone who's lost the use of their limbs and is confined to a wheelchair, and they'll see how important ramps are. They've got no idea, some of these people. That legislation is important and should be brought in. I thank you for your comments. A first for this programme, and I thank John, who is currently sitting in a car on Douglas Head, for his comments. He's written out his comments there and delivered them to our studio. Must be a first. The worst offender seems to be the public sector, as regarding the Disability Discrimination Act. At Port Erin Railway Station, there used to be a ramp from the end of Platform 2 Station Road. 2 or 3 years ago, this was replaced by steps without a handrail. And what about the legibility of signs for those people of limited eyesight? The new finger posts in Douglas have blue lettering on blue backgrounds. According to John, must try harder. The theme actually from Brian as well. You're talking about access to places. A few months ago, one of the pubs was having its front refurbished. I phoned the brewery to ask if they were adding disabled access. Conveniently, the person who deals with this side of things wasn't there. After the work was done, no way someone in a wheelchair would be able to get in there. Brian, I thank you for your comments. To return to Muriel, who raised about the Equality Bill, I said the Equality Bill is about much more than ramps for wheelchairs. It's about human rights and how we treat people as regards age, gender, disability, etc., etc. Lots of countries have had equality bills for years. Surely we could adapt one of those rather than starting from scratch. Don't know. Unfortunately on that, I should imagine if somebody had thought about that in government, it would have probably saved them 6 years. But they probably did, and they couldn't do it. It's got to start from scratch as far as the bill's concerned. Surely wheelchair users, this is Jenny, should all have a bell to warn people they are coming, like lepers. Okay. Can't quite understand it because possibly your tongue was in your cheek. How long would it take for them to get round the back of a building to ring the bell there? Some people have no care for the less able in our community. I would love to know what percentage of people on the island are in wheelchairs. I would love to know why every first-time house buyer houses are all fitted out with wide doors and low light switches. I know firsthand that low light switches are a nightmare if you're tall and you've got a bad back. Mike, thank you for your comments. Time to go to the phones and say a big good afternoon to Bonzo.
Hello. Well, yes, on the Equality Act, in a previous life, I actually helped put through a bill through UK Parliament. So I do have some knowledge of drafting issues and the like. And in UK, obviously, there is a much larger department of the parliamentary draftsman section of what is Treasury Solicitors, which is essentially the government legal service. And I would have thought that if the Isle of Man government asked politely, they could actually have one of those draftsmen come on secondment.
Oh, I'm with you. So we sort of get the best of advice from the UK across the water.
You know, we have seconded people before from the UK civil service. I mean, indeed, well, after the bill that I helped put through, I then went to another section of the ministry that I was with, and my boss was an old staff inspector from HM Treasury called Roger Poole, who had actually previously been sent over to the Isle of Man to help reform the Manx civil service.
But as far as the equality bills are concerned, Muriel's comment earlier was the fact that there are all over the world equality bills. Is there a one-size-fits-all?
No. Obviously, there'll be some commonalities with UK acts, and of course there are various, I would think, implementation of European directives and such, which would then feed into that act, which on the Isle of Man might not apply, although we tend to commonly follow them. Yeah. And of course, employers have them in contracts as best practice. So there would be certain differences, but by and large, it's the kind of thing I would have thought that a junior draftsman from the Parliamentary Draftsman Department would be able to assist with quite easily.
There we are. So get somebody in from the UK to do it. All people who are disabled are not necessarily wheelchair bound. I agree with that one. It would be extremely helpful to the less able to have access to handrails. I recently visited Ballacamine Studio Theatre and also the Manx Museum Theatre and observed quite a few elderly people struggling with stairs because of the lack of handrails. Sometimes the government should already have dealt with You would have thought, yes. Dave, recently I've had to use a wheelchair to push my wife around shops. It's amazing how, since we started to use the wheelchair, how my wife has become invisible to other shoppers. They just walk straight in front of us without bothering to look where they're going. Unfortunately, it seems to be the female of the species who are more prone to do this, and males are much more sympathetic and understanding. John, I thank you so much for your comments.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
There's been angry reaction from across the world about a well-known lion, Cecil, killed during an organised hunt in Zimbabwe. 2 Zimbabwean men have been charged with poaching following the killing of this iconic lion, and they have appeared in court. The pair are accused of luring Cecil from a protected area so he could be hunted by an American tourist. Now, Walter Palmer reportedly paid £35,000 to have the animal shot with a crossbow. Protests have taken place outside his surgery in Minnesota, where he is a dentist. It's been reported that death threats have been made against the American dentist who has gone into hiding. Is the story being blown out of all proportion? Is hunting a perfectly legitimate sport? Has the reaction to the death of this particular lion been over the top? Or are people right to be angered by this situation? Joining me on the line is Rob with his view. Good afternoon to you, Rob.
Terrible. It's a throwback to the old days of the British Empire when they went out and shot game to the trophies, and that's always right, is putting a trophy on the wall, isn't it? And it should be stopped. There's not many wild animals left in Africa or Asia now. It's all down to animals being broken up for proportions and trophies on walls, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a lovely picture on the internet today of a photographer with a leopard looking over his shoulder and said, "This is the legitimate way to shoot animals with the world of photography."
He should go downtown Manhattan or Harlem at night with his bow and arrow and see if he gets on with wildlife down there.
But do you think this story has been blown out of all proportion because it was a cute lion?
No, I so few of them left. Every one is shot. Potential for the extinction in the wild of any of these animals. It
seems strange. I've sort of done some research on this, and it appears as though 660-odd trophy lions were exported from Africa per year. And when you've got
used by the claws for all kinds of potions, don't they?
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons for killing these animals, isn't it?
So that's Rob nailing his colours to the mast that this is wrong, yes?
Yes. Most definitely.
So, do you agree with Rob on that subject? We want to hear from you. The debate goes on, and there was other comments on Facebook. This is the sort of basically a Facebook campaign that has sort of brought the whole thing to consciousness. But, are other things happening in Africa which are possibly worse but don't get the coverage on the media that should get? Killing of a lion, it's a cute lion, isn't it? Cecil. Your thoughts? I can't understand why anyone would want to kill another living creature unless it was to eat it or to save the person's life. Joan, I thank you for your comment. And we are talking with Kevin now. Good afternoon to you, Kevin.
People are going to hate me for this, but I'm actually, for the whole principle of it, I'm for it because I understand why they do it.
Why?
I'm not saying I agree with this gentleman who's killed this Cecil the lion. I don't think we're getting the full picture as it is, but I don't agree with what he's done there. But the whole reason why they do this big game hunting, most of the estates, well, we call them estates, the thousands of acres over in Africa, they're all self-funded. They don't get any help from the government. So for them to raise money to do the work on these estates, they'll put aside animals that are cull animals, which are weak or injured or old. They have to get rid of the old ones to make room for the younger males to come in and keep decent bloodlines going. And the only way they can afford to keep up the poacher patrols, etc., to stop illegal hunting, is to sell the rights to kill that cull animal, which is going to get killed anyway by them. Why not get someone to pay £50,000 to take that shot?
That's a cull, as you said, isn't it?
It's a cull animal. It's an animal that they've decided is basically past its best. All right, whether you agree with it or not, I mean, most people would say, well, let nature take its toll, but it's exactly the same as what they do with deer in England. They manage the herds the older animals are culled, which makes room for the younger animals, which keeps healthy bloodlines going. Because the older males will dominate all the females and won't let the younger males come in, and the bloodline becomes weak then. And that's basically what they do. But I'm not saying that's what happened this time. It sounds like, I can't work out whether your man's gone and done it knowingly or he's been set up by these two rangers who've got the shot for him. It sounds like, I don't think we're getting the full story yet. But
okay, good man. Thank you for sharing your views with us
All
today
right.
then, Kevin. Thank you so much. I don't understand how this story has attracted so much attention. I feel sorry for the dentist, who is now £35,000 out of pocket and at the centre of a witch hunt. He believed he was on a legal hunting trip. His guides should be prosecuted for poaching. I believe that he is a victim. An alternative view, we thank you. I've just read the article about the last hours of Cecil's life. He was shot in the flank, then ran off. It took 40 hours to find him. A professional marksman put him out of his misery. The creed of the Native American for thousands of years has been never kill something you can't eat and only take what you need. Maybe the dentist should take heed. Brian, thank you so much for that comment. Does that last listener not realise that the lovely lion was deliberately lured from its protected area? I think Kevin actually said that probably after you had sent your text through, especially for him to kill. That is the whole point. The animal was lured to its death. This action was not paying funds to a cause. This money went into private hands, that according to Ali. I know what happened to the lion. This is Howard calling us. Is shocking, but I think it overshadows other things. But when are they going to stop bullfighting or bear baiting? Every year the bulls are killed for the ego of the matadors. Killing for sport is wrong. Thank you for your comment, Howard. I used to hunt for the table. I no longer do so. There is no reason to kill an animal for pleasure. That's just wrong on so many levels. I don't agree with your last caller. The point is Cecil was the top lion and had 6 cubs. These cubs and their lioness are now being killed as other lions who take over. They used to make so much money through people taking photographs of Cecil more than the Americans paid to shoot him. The knock-on effect is that this money is now gone. Mark sends an email in. The caller who claims that the safari estates do it to kill the lions is quite wrong. They are not cull animals at all. The lion named Cecil was no such animal. I think we have established that, Mark. This is all part of a cynical plan to make money. The people who are doing the shooting are part of the international illegal trade in animal parts. Lions and other animals are critically endangered. The argument that a paid lion hunt prevents other types of hunting is also false. It is not done by rangers in an effort to cull. The caller is deluding himself if he thinks that any of his statement is correct. Big cats need protecting. Lions in particular are more endangered than polar bears. There are around 20,000 lions left in the wild in Africa. So with such dwindling numbers of lions, no killing of them could be good for the population as a whole. All big game hunting to satisfy the egos of ignorant hunters should be illegal. We cannot afford the loss of these animals. Regards. There, well, that's Mark's comments about it.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
You're listening to the latest Talking Heads podcast featuring highlights from the programme over the past week.
For those who are of a mind to take their canine companions along when popping out for a bite to eat, a new sticker campaign could be a big help on that front. The restrictions on taking dogs into places which serve food was lifted at the end of May, and now a local group is hoping to make it easier for those with pets to know where their furry friends are welcome. Tell us more about. We're joined by two of the people behind the dog-friendly sticker campaign, Brenda Cannell, Paul Kane. Good afternoon to the pair of you, and thanks for popping in.
Hi, Bob.
You're
welcome. You're welcome, Bob.
You left the dog outside.
Well, it's a very warm day, so it would be inadvisable to bring a dog into the studio because it is very warm, and it's very warm in a car as well.
Okay. As far as the campaign is concerned, How long have you been challenging this one, Brenda?
Well, I became aware that in 2012, a constituent in the south of the island lobbied DEFA, the department, about allowing dogs in pubs. At the time, the minister went out and did a survey of the brewery and all the independent pubs, and surprisingly, the independents came back and said, yes, we'd love to, but the brewery said, no way, and that's where it rested. I became aware of this in 2013, and I thought, this is crazy because we're missing out on a really good potential business here. You look at the Lake District, parts of Scotland, part of the United Kingdom, Europe, booming trade with people who actually go on holiday and take their dogs with them. We lose a lot of business from the Isle of Man, from local people going away with their dogs to have a holiday. And then I looked at TripAdvisor. Well, that was just I thought, that's it. I mean, very poor press for the Isle of Man on TripAdvisor, and I thought this has got to stop. So I began researching and discovered that, in fact, in 2007, the European hygiene regulations changed and were adopted by Tynwald, and the relevant section says that no domestic animal to have access to where food is prepared, stored or handled. It was silent on where it was being served.
Okay.
So I took up the issue with the then civil servants and said, well, look, aren't you interpreting it wrong? Their view at the time was, no, the rest of the UK and Scotland were interpreting it wrong, as was Europe, and we were interpreting it correctly. Didn't give up there, continued to write, and there's reams and reams of emails between the then civil servants and myself. The minister changed, Minister Ronan came in, and I lobbied him October 2014, but before then, Paul and I and a number of supporters got together in September last year to discuss the issue.
Yeah. Okay, what was your immediate reaction as soon as Brenda contacted you, Paul?
Just a really positive one, having, as Brenda says, been going to the lakes. UK sells a lot on holiday, bringing our own dogs with us. It's not only the eateries, it's the retail shops themselves. I was quite surprised one day wife went in and I was signed in, and I said, I've got the dog, it doesn't matter, come on in. And the guy behind me said the same,
Okay.
So it's just that extra revenue from people that we're missing out, a big market.
Now, you're from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Port Erin,
yeah.
And you're dog friendly already?
Yes, we are.
Have you had any adverse reaction to that decision?
No, it's been brilliant. Honestly, it's we still get people that we have outside seating as well, that still like to sit in the sunshine, everybody with water bowls and dog treats. But lots of times the dogs are in even like Brenda's big Sonny came in one day, but just under a table, people don't even know they're there, but they lie quietly. And as the sticker says, well-behaved dogs. That's what we're looking for.
A wonderful sticker that's been produced as well.
Yeah, it is.
Well, the sticker was designed by my eldest son. I asked him if he'd do it, and I said, we need a picture of a nice, happy dog. So there's a face of a golden retriever. I've got a golden retriever, so that might have something to do with it. Yeah. If people are on Facebook, I mean, at the moment we've actually done no advertising whatsoever, and we've got 50 businesses have said yes so far.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and on top of that, we've got the Isle of Man Steam Railway, the Electric Railway are letting you go with your dog. They charge 30p one way to take a ride with you. So, what better to be able to get on a train, take a ride with your dog, get off down south, perhaps, go to Port Erin, go to the Whistle Stop Cafe, go to Bradder Head that's just come on board as well.
Glen Cafe's just come on board.
And have something to eat and a drink. Yeah. There's nothing better, actually, to be honest with you, Bob, than I spend a lot of time out with my dog these days, and I go for long walks in the Glen. And then once he's exhausted and all his energy is out of him, then we go to a nice little dog-friendly cafe, and I have a cup of tea and a slice of cake, and he lies fast asleep under the table on my feet. What we felt, Paul had an offer from the campaign in Scotland to give us some free stickers called Dogs in Pubs.
Believe it or not.
Thank you.
They have a huge, their map now is, there's hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
Not only pubs.
Yeah.
And they've they're one up on us really. They've got a brilliant website, and I got in touch, and he sent me a couple of free stickers. And we've sort of taking it from there a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I just felt that we needed our own Manx sticker, and we've got a 3 legs of man on ours. Yeah. Ours is also designed to help partially sighted people because they can read black lettering on yellow more easily, if you like, than they can read black on white. And on top of that, I sensed going out and about and asking different places if they will go dog friendly. Some want to, but they're a little bit nervous because they think that people are going to come in, dogs are going to be on chairs, they're going to be licking plates on tables, people are going to be feeding them, and this sort of thing. So this is why we thought, didn't we, Paul?
That's right.
The emphasis to be on well-behaved dogs welcome.
Well-behaved owners as well.
But as I say, it's still not only eateries, it's just normal. I mean, Port Erin, we have Ken Quines, the post office, the bank, people like that. You can still, instead of tethering it outside, you can go in, do your business.
Take the dog with you. The stickers are available. They are available Dogs Welcome on the Facebook page, but if you're not literate enough to be on the Facebook pages, 2 phone numbers, I'll read them slowly. 495 923, that gets you to Paul, and 620 410 gets you to Brenda. I wish you all success with the campaign. Thank you so much for calling and taking time today for us.
Lovely.
Thank you.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Should you be eligible to vote to actually hold political office yourself? After controversy over the removal of a Douglas councillor from his position on the council last week, after it was revealed he wasn't on the electoral register, 2 long-serving local authority members in the north have had to stand down for the same reason. Jeff Quayle and Wilf Young have had to walk away from their seats on Ramsey Commissioners this week. Like Douglas Corporation, the authority's taking legal advice, and the outcome is the same. Should politicians have to be eligible to vote to hold political office themselves, or does it make little difference to their ability to carry out their duties? First one is from Rusty's dad, who says, question, who took the 3 members' names off the polling register? Well, they did by default, by not registering like the rest of us did to vote. The law is quite clear, as was the need to fill in the form. The form was delivered to every household. This requirement is beyond the wit of a member. Is he, she fit to be a member, says John in Ramsey. That's kind of one point of view on this. I think there are 2 points of view, aren't there? I think that's one of them. Let's see if we get to the other. Surely when hearing people have been left off the list, the people in authority should have checked the list. I think it's their own fault, says Pat. I don't think it is. I think that if it is a requirement that everybody fills in the form and registers to vote, then I don't think it should be anybody else's fault if they're not on the list. Common sense would tell you that if you're standing for office, you would be registered to vote on the day of your election, especially if you lose by 1 vote. Democracy says we have the right to vote, but it requires the effort to ensure that we're registered. The process itself is us exercising the democratic procedure of ensuring that we make ourselves available and are not forced into it with automatic registration. Okay. If people don't have the wherewithal to register to vote, they shouldn't be allowed to vote. Never mind stand for office, says Robbie. Okay. Well, it seems that that pretty much everybody thinks it's their own fault and that they're going to have to fall on the sword. Read the electoral roll. If you drive a car, you have to have a licence, etc. in place, just as you have to be on the electoral roll to vote and or serve on boards. Mr. Moffat shouldn't be blaming the law when it's clear that the men have not done their homework, says Kath. Everybody's being very strict today about this. Let's go to the lines and see what Viv thinks about people who are on councils or commissioners who are not registered to vote themselves. Hello, Viv.
I'm a member of a local authority.
Yeah.
You now cannot go on the list till October. That's the next time you can go on. But personal view is that everybody should see that they are on the list.
Yes.
How can you go and represent somebody and tell people they should be on the list if you're not there?
Yes, I agree with that.
I'm not having a go at anybody. I'd hate anybody to think that, but that is my personal view on it.
And I think a lot of people agree with you, Viv, but I mean, the question is that, all right, so that's what should have happened. It hasn't happened in these 3 examples. Wouldn't it be simpler to just say, right, okay, you know, you need to register for October or whatever, but carry on as is, or, you know, take a leave of absence until you're actually officially on the thing, rather than forcing by-elections, which are expensive and time-consuming, aren't they?
I accept that. But I also think that the DOI should step in and sort this out. They are responsible for local authorities.
Right, okay. All right, interesting stuff. Thanks very much for getting in touch, Viv. Let's see what other comments we've got here. If they can't fill in form, what are they doing in politics, says Gary. Eddie called, can't the people who drew up these rules just say, get yourself back on the list and carry on, give them 24 hours to do it? This is not even an issue unless it's challenged in court, and who's going to take it to court? I would imagine to get on the register, you fill in a form and put the date on it. Surely then, if anyone wants to dispute it, you can refer them to the date on the form. It doesn't need to involve lawyers and courts. Well, that's kind of my view on this, I think. And as Viv said, the next time that you can officially be on the list is October. I think you could probably make a special case and say, we're talking about people who've been serving the communities for some time now, and this has been a bit of an oversight, so let's just make it legal. Seems that government can do that. They can make things legal after the event, can't they? Have people missed the point that these people were registered to vote when they were elected? They just didn't complete the form this year under the new voter registration system. That from Susie in Foxdale. Yeah, but as people continue to say, if you're a politician yourself and you're saying to people it's important that people are registered to vote and you've not done it yourself, it doesn't put out a very good example, does it? So I can see that argument, certainly. The electoral register isn't some sort of holy grail cast in stone, as you say. Just get the guys to fill in the form. Hey, presto, job done. Yep, seems a lot easier than the by-election process and less likely to be legally challenged, says Chris W. That's my view on this. Not only should councillors and commissioners be on the register, MHK should also have to be and be registered in the area that they wish to represent, says Tony. Stu, why must everybody these days rely on ticking boxes and civil servants justifying their existence? What about their capabilities and track records? Do these count for nothing? Common sense should prevail in a situation such as this, although that may be hard to find in our government presently, says Ali. How many MHKs are not registered? Ask somebody else. I expect they've all been checking very diligently to make sure that they are registered over the last week or so. I think that the jury service may deter some people from filling in the form. I do agree that those who've signed up retrospectively should still be allowed to serve on the commissioners. That's Marie in Port Erin. Stu, surely when a prospective candidate submits his nomination form to stand for election, the onus must lie on the person organising the election to ensure that the candidate is legally eligible. Well, somebody suggested, Chris, that they were registered when they stood and were elected, but they've fallen off it since, because it's now become a thing whereby you've got to positively make sure that you're registered rather than it being assumed that you're registered. In an election, I would surmise that a candidate would plumb vote himself, so I'm surprised that at the time of the election this anomaly didn't manifest itself at the time. Like I say, I think that probably they were on the register when they stood for election. How do you check if you're on the list? Most people get the form and send it back, and that's the last they hear about it until they send you another one. How would you know if it's been lost or misplaced and you're not actually on the list? As far as I know, I am. I sent the last form back, but this is a storm in a teacup. Just reinstate them. I can't believe that they're being so petty. That from Bob. Thank you, Bob. Wilf's been in touch. Wilf Young from Ramsey. He's one of the people who's fallen foul of this. He said, I'm sure I got one of those forms and filled it in and sent it back. I posted it in the postbox in the middle of the street. I'm sure I did. Now they're convincing me that I didn't. It must have got lost somewhere in transit. I've been in touch with everybody in government that I can, and they can't tell me if I did or I didn't. They don't know. Well, yeah, you can't expect them to know, really. I mean, I'm convinced I've sent mine, but if somebody said, no, we never got it, then you'd have to question whether or not you did send it or not, I suppose. Brian called, the voting system should be the same here as it is in Australia. By law, you have to be on the register or you get fined. Ah, right, okay, that's a way of doing it. Stu, if the local authorities hadn't acted, we'd all be on here shouting. Well, that's true as well. They think they're above the law. It's clearly the responsibility of us all to make sure that our name is on the list. No one to blame but themselves, says Peter. Fair point. Surely there's a midline here. This has probably gone on for many years, so let's leave the people in situ, but make sure that there's an unambiguous rule that councillors, commissioners must be on the voters list from now on. That seems like a pragmatic solution too.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
That's it for the latest look back at Talking Heads. As ever, our thanks to everyone who took part in the programme. And you can get involved in the programme each weekday by tuning in between midday and 2 p.m. and getting your thoughts to us by calling, texting or emailing. If you can't get in touch while the programme's on air, you can get involved in the debate by visiting the Talking Heads Facebook page, Talking Heads with Stu Peters, and post your comments under the relevant topic. But please remember to keep what you post within reason. And there's a chance to catch up on each day's programme in full using the on-demand section of manxradio.com. And you'll find a daily update of the topics up for discussion on the programme on the website too. You can also get that information on the Facebook page or by following Stu Manx on Twitter. If you'd like to suggest a subject for discussion on the programme, email it to talk@manxradio.com. But that's it for now, so until next time, goodbye.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.